Hi, after taking audience response into consideration, I've decided to change the voices of characters to better reflect their age. Thank you for listening. Now please enjoy Reverend Insanity by Gu Zhenren. Chapter 211. Path. High up in the sky, winds roared.
Die!
Nobleman Sky Crane screamed furiously, using all of his remaining power to turn into a ray of light heading straight to Guyu's first chieftain.
Think you can kill me with that? You're being too naive.
The blood demon zombie opened his mouth, exposing his long fawn-like teeth. Instead of backing down, he stepped forward. A huge explosion sent the two of them flying. Both were badly hurt.
As long as the mountain remains, the stream won't dry. Junior brother, today's grudge, one day I will pay back in full.
Laughing thunderously, Guyu's first chieftain flapped his bat wings, about to fly away when suddenly a massive shadow appeared in the sky. It was the heavily injured Iron Beak Flying Crane King.
What? You haven't died yet? Damn it!
Guyu's first chieftain's expression changed. With the Iron Beak Flying Crane King blocking his takeoff, and Nobleman Sky Crane attacking right from behind, Guyu's first chieftain was trapped. In the end, the Flying Crane King was killed, its corpse fell on the ground, but the blood demon zombie's body was also smashed into pieces. Floating in midair, holding Guyu's first chieftain's head in his hand, Nobleman Sky Crane was stunned. He turned to the sky and laughed loudly 3 times, then the laughter became sorrowful cries. After venting his emotions, Nobleman Sky Crane flew back to Qing Mao Mountain, only to be trapped in a block of ice when Bai Ning Bing exploded his Northern Abyss Ice Soul physique, forcing him to use the breath-preserving Jade Crypt goo. Once broke out from the ice, he frantically searched the mountain but found only a dying Fang Yuan underneath the ice. The wall was displaying everything that happened that day. What happened next could be skipped as it only recorded the path Nobleman Sky Crane took to get back. The Immortal Crane Sect was one of Central Continent's oldest sections. All of their personnels, when going on emergency missions, would bring along a goo bug that could record the entire process. Regardless of whether the mission was a success or failure, all goo masters must undergo evaluation based on the recorded events. Even though Nobleman Sky Crane was a sect elder, he was not exempt from this rule, albeit there were very few people left with enough seniority to run evaluation on him, not even the current head of Immortal Crane Sect. However, the old man sitting in front of Nobleman Sky Crane right now was not an ordinary person. He was half Fang Yuan, High Elder, Rank 6 Goo Master, also known as the Feather Crane Flying Immortal. He was sitting in a meditation pose, in his white robe and black belt. His face looked like that of a teenager, smooth as jade, with long lush eyebrows extending all the way to his waist. His eyes were looking closely at the images being displayed on the wall. Nobleman Sky Crane simply stood by half Fang Yuan in absolute silence, not even daring to breathe out loud. Given that Nobleman Sky Crane had been in hibernation for almost a millennia, Elder He was technically still his junior, but seniority did not warrant power, only abilities could. Nobleman Sky Crane himself was rank 5, only 1 rank below half Fang Yuan, but this difference was as massive as the great divide between the heavens and the earth. Rank 5 were mere mortals, while rank 6 were immortals.
Sky Crane.
Half Fang Yuan finally spoke. His voice was as soft as spring water.
Here.
You went out and eliminated the traitor of our sect, but did not recover the Blood Skull goo. More importantly, you were toyed with and trapped by these 2 youngsters.
Turning his head down, Nobleman Sky Crane was deeply ashamed.
However, given one of them is the famous Northern Abyss Ice Soul physique, I'm not surprised that you got trapped. What's good is that you tried to fix the situation. Let me ask you, the boy you brought back, is he really the twin of that brat on display?
I've already investigated and confirmed their identities. The one who escaped is the older brother Fang Yuan. The one I brought here is the younger brother Fang Zheng. The best thing is that these two brothers are not on good terms. Once I showed him images of his brother slaughtering their own clansmen, Fang Zheng wanted nothing but to kill Fang Yuan right on the spot.
Nobleman Sky Crane smiled deviously, warranting Fang Yang's nod of approval.
Seems like you have a plan, but do you have enough time?
Nobleman Sky Crane's expression changed. His tone suddenly became solemn.
High Elder, you are correct. I've reached the limit of my lifespan, with only a few days left to live. Even the breath-preserving Jade Crypt Goo cannot do anything about my situation anymore.
The one true way to solve his problem at its root was to find a lifespan goo. Unfortunately, they were extremely rare. Even though the Immortal Crane sect did have a few saved in storage, they were tightly controlled by the head of the sect and the High Elders.
That's why I spent my entire life savings and goo bugs to trade for soul implantation plankton. I will initiate Fang Zheng into our sect and make him my disciple. I will personally train him and refine the Blood King goo. Then I will persuade him to go kill his brother and retrieve the Blood Skull goo for our Immortal Crane sect.
Fang Yang raised his eyebrows quizzically.
Sounds to me you are confident about your plan. But will this Fang Zheng be manipulated by your scheme?
He might be of high aptitude, but he was still just a kid. After I die and embed my soul into the plankton goo, I will spend all my time teaching him. The path for him has already been very well paved. All he has to do is walk the path.
Upon saying so, Nobleman Sky Crane kneeled onto the ground and begged.
High Elder, please give me another chance.
Fang Yang was quiet for a time, then said,
All right, I shall grant you this one last request.
Thank you, Master High Elder. Thank you.
Nobleman Sky Crane was overjoyed.
Go, I will wait for your good news.
It won't take more than 20 years, and you will hear of my success,
said Nobleman Sky Crane before he made his way out. Southern borders, Wanqing Mountain, the Tai Clan Fort City. With its tall thick black rock wall extending thousands of li, the Tai Clan city was built on the side of a mountain. Countless stone houses and iron towers were lined up all the way to the summit. Sunlight shone upon the big city, showcasing crowded streets with people and horse carriages moving about like flowing water, a true picture of prosperity. The chieftain chamber stood close to the peak, heavily guarded. There were groups of goo masters taking circuitous routes patrolling the area. On the roof of the chamber stood two people. One was a middle-aged man, his face was as cold as iron, but there was warmth underneath his eyes. Standing by his side was a young girl, her eyes were showing both grief and determination. She was Tai Ruanan.
Didn't you just get back only a few days ago? This has been the 19th time you asked me to let you leave. Your father's passing had greatly stricken me as well. I understand your pain. Your mother's funeral was not too long ago, and now it is your father's funeral, but please remember that you still have me, your uncle. Remember that you are my niece. I will never put you in danger.
The Tai Clan chieftain sighed. Tai Ruanan's eyes were beaming, staring straight at him.
You know, Uncle? Even though my father is gone, I feel happy for him. Father has dedicated his entire life to fighting evil. He did it. Even when wounded, he did not back down. He walked through life with unwavering perseverance. And now I must do the same.
The Tai Clan chieftain was stunned. At this very moment, he could see the image of Tai Xuelong and Tai Ruanan. It was in their eyes, so similar. He thought back to his younger days, with Tai Xuelong standing by his side, looking right at the Tai Clan's demon ceiling tower, and said with determination,
I will capture all criminals, to fill the world with love and justice. I will lock up every single one of the demonic path into the demon ceiling tower, even if I have to sacrifice the tower itself.
The old vow was still echoing in his ears, but his friend was no longer here. Seeing images of the past overlapping with those of the present, the Tai clan chieftain stopped focusing on his memories. He now looked at the determined Tai Ruan man standing in front of him with appreciation, love, worries, and encouragement.
This path you chose is not an easy one.
Tai Ruan did not answer. Instead, she looked at the mountain top. On the summit of Mount Wanqing stood a formidable iron tower. Its presence was imposing, like it was holding up the very distance between heavens and earth. White clouds were circling around it like mist, further increasing the great tower's mystical appearance. Demon Ceiling Tower was famed not only as a southern border's beautiful scenery, but it was also known across the 5 regions as the Righteous Path's infamous prison for the demonic Gu Masters. The ancient tower was nearly 100 stories tall, exuding an incredible sense of righteousness. Ever since its creation, Tai Clan's Gu Masters had locked up who knew how many demonic path Gu Masters in it. Even the Tai Clan chieftain didn't know for sure. It was the symbol of the righteous path, the pride of every single Tai Clan Gu Master. Many demonic path cultivators had been captured here, leaving behind only their anguish, regret, indignance, and remorse. People of the demonic path went pale talking about it, while people on the righteous path danced with joy under the glory of its light. Tai Ruan answered. Her tone was as determined as iron, almost like she was talking to not only the Tai Clan chieftain, but also herself.
Mount Wanqing has a demon ceiling tower. Now my heart also has a demon ceiling tower. This path my father did not finish, I shall complete it for him. I can't hold on anymore.
Qin Shuihua was feeling dizzy, nauseous, and extremely exhausted. She tried to vomit, but there was nothing. She was planning to hold on for 3 days, but now realized she was too optimistic. The harm done to her body by the venom was getting worse. She could feel death approaching. She needed a healing Gu bug.
Darn it, if it was not for those 2 little thieves. I might have caught a wild Gu and healed myself already.
Ever since she was bitten, Qin Shuihua was anxious to find a healing Gu bug, but as luck would have it, the forest was big and filled with many dangers, not to mention her complete lack of Gu catching knowledge. She did not find any. Over on the other side, Bai Ningbing raised her dagger, about to cut her right ear off.
Hold it!
Fang Yuan suddenly grabbed her arm, stopping the blade right before it touched her ear. To use the earthly hearing ear grass, one must cut off their right ear. Thinking an ear was just an ear, Bai Ningbing did not feel an ounce of hesitation from having to cut it off, especially when given the potential rewards. People in the demonic path were ruthless, not only to others, but even more so to themselves. And most of the time, only people who could do what must be done could achieve greatness.
No need to cut your ear off, she's out.
As he spoke, Fang Yuan started to move. Using the earthly hearing ear grass, he could maintain quite a distance from Qin Shuihua as he followed her. Shortly, he could hear fighting noises. He and Bai Ningbing approached with care, making maximal use of the lush dense shrubs, only to see the Gu Master woman fighting against a 2-headed boar, which made them very happy. Qin Shuihua's situation was disastrous, her battle strength not nearly half of what she used to show, and this 2-headed boar was a 100-beast king, armed with a defensive Gu.
This is a battle of attrition. We can take advantage of them both.
The Gu she buried are indeed Thundering Potatoes Gu.
Something is off. She has been fighting for a really long time. Why is her primeval essence not running out?
It appears she has some sort of support Gu like Heavenly Primeval Treasured Lotus or Fish Bubble Gu.
After careful observation, Fang Yuan decided that the time was right, called out the Stealth Scales Gu from his aperture and handed it to Bai Ningbing. She nodded quietly, then vanished. Another explosion happened as the 2-headed boar stepped on yet another Thundering Potato Gu. This time, though, it did not get up again. Struggling on the ground, the boar was blown open. There were intestines and blood pouring out of its belly.
Damn boar. So thick-skinned. Took me half a day to explode you dead.
Leaning against a tree and breathing roughly, Chen Shuihua was seeing black. It was only fear that kept her standing and not passing out.
Not good. I must hurry back to the cave. It's too dangerous if I pass out here in the wild.
She was about to move when suddenly.
Strange, where did that wind come from?
It was the last thing that came to Chen Shuihua's mind as Bai Ningbing had secretly got to her side and delivered the hit, perfectly making use of the death of the boar to distract her focus. That was the final moments of the unfortunate demonic path Gu Master Woman. With one swift move, the coarse blade golden centipede crushed her head, and her body dropped to the ground.
We did it.
Fang Yuan laughed as he quickly came over. Bai Ningbing had already started searching through her slain foe's corpse. Her mind's eyes entered Chen Shuihua's aperture.
There's only 3 goo here.
She said with disappointment. Goo bugs refined by Goo masters were all a bit more rigid, not as willful as wild goo bugs. Now that Chen Shuihua was dead, her aperture was getting darker, but 3 goo bugs remained inside. This, however, could not stop Fang Yuan.
Plunder goo.
He easily retrieved these 3 goo bugs. They were 1 rice bad grass goo, 1 iron thorn thistle goo, and a thundering mother pod goo. These, of course, were not all. As Fang Yuan searched through Chen Shuihua's body, he then found a hairy feet goo, a jumping grass goo, and lastly a bookworm lodged inside her smashed brain, which unfortunately had been destroyed by Bai Ningbing's attack.
This bookworm must have been an inheritance item. The information it carried must have been why she knew so much about goo masters. There could have been other things recorded there too, such as goo recipes.
He said, feeling pity.
Never mind the bookworm. Does she have any healing goo?
Bai Ningbing was greatly disappointed. Fang Yuan didn't say anything. He had deduced that Chen Shuihua must not have had a healing goo, given her sorry state. What intrigued him the most was how fast her primeval essence was recovering, which was exceeding that of grade A aptitudes, on par with those of the 10 extreme physiques. However, she was clearly not one of the 10 extreme physiques, only grade A in aptitude, and among all her goo bugs they found here, none could increase primeval essence recovery speed.
Oh! So this is how you bind breasts?
Said Bai Ningbing, as she undressed Chen Shuihua. Fang Yuan then immediately noticed a silver-edged triangle tattoo on her chest.
It's the 3rd watch goo.
3rd watch goo? What's that?
This is a rank 5 goo that could accelerate time flow by 3 folds. It is a single-use goo and will be gone once activated. When placed on a goo master, it will form this silver triangle tattoo on their chest.
Following this, Fang Yuan started to explain in greater detail. The river of time always flowed at a constant rate, so for regular people, 1 day was 1 day. However, for people who used the 3rd watch goo, 1 day was equivalent to 3 days compressed into 1. With its help, Chen Shuihua had made tremendous progress in cultivation, given each day she spent nurturing her aperture was the same as others spending 3 on theirs. The effect was obvious to see. Another benefit of using this goo was increased primeval essence recovery. On her, the river of time flowed 3 times as fast, and, therefore, so did her primeval essence recovery, to Fang Yuan and Bai Ningbing's surprise when they fought her earlier. Unfortunately, as the world longed for equilibrium, there were ups and downs to everything. The 3rd watch goo was no exception. The biggest downside to using this goo was undoubtedly loss of lifespan. As the river of time flowed 3 times as fast, she would age 3 times faster. Chen Shuihua had only gotten the inheritance for a little bit less than a year, but for her it was almost 3 years. The second drawback was that any injuries or illnesses that took time to manifest and aggravate would require only 1/3 of the time required to do so. For example, the green python's venom was affecting Chen Shuihua the same way it would have on another Gu master after 3 days of incubation, albeit she had only been bitten a day ago. This was the reason why she could not hold on in the cave any longer.
To be given this third watch Gu, looks like this woman's inheritance is a rank 5 at least. It's a pity, such a good Gu fell into the hands of someone like her.
Looking at the headless corpse, Bai Ningbing said with disdain. To reduce one's life by 2/3 was undoubtedly a very high price, but third watch Gu was surprisingly well appreciated among Gu masters in the demonic path who often had to fight alone without any resources from clan or sect support. These people also had to watch out for sweeping teams of people on the righteous path and, therefore, must put their survival as their number one priority. Survival was the single most important thing. Everything else was mere delusory. The higher the rank, the higher the chance for one to survive. The third watch Gu condensed a Gu master's life by focusing their potentials and igniting them into beautiful lights, brilliant but short-lived, like the cherry blossoms. But without third watch Gu, the little flower bud would not have been allowed to mature in time.
That is true. People who use third watch Gu should be deliberate and courageous. This woman, on the other hand, was a born scaredy cat who preferred prolonging to advancing. Her ending up like this was entirely her fault.
Fang Yuan concluded, taking a final look at the headless corpse. Bai Ningbing's expression quickly turned unsettled. This Gu master woman was the best example of what would happen to them traveling in the wild without a healing Gu. Would this be her future as well? Patting her shoulders, Fang Yuan consoled.
All of the paths in this world are walked up by people. Everybody has their own way. Even if someone else's path is easier than yours, it doesn't mean it will suit you. You and I are walking our own paths, so what is there to worry about?
Bai Ningbing was stunned, then her expression finally lit up, and she nodded.
You are right.
Fang Yuan considered their situation. Killing the demonic path Gu master woman and obtaining her Gu bugs had tremendously increased their strength. Knowing he had no healing Gu bug, at the same time knowing he could not count on luck, Fang Yuan might encounter a chance to catch himself a healing Gu, or he could also be like this Gu master woman, dead before he could achieve anything. Maybe, just a few moments later, he would be trampled by a pack of beasts, and forever end his ambitions. But so what? The path was always right under his feet, all he had to do was step forward.